Okay, so painting with coffee. So you're going to need some coffee, some little pots to put it in, your image, and some water and a paintbrush. I'm going to put these off to the side so they're not in the way. So you'll notice that I'm making different strengths of coffee. Now it's entirely up to you how many you want to make. I'm just going to make two just to show you. So you can see in one I've got quite a small amount, and then I've got double the amount in the second one. Okay, so when I add some water to this one is going to be stronger unless I add too much water than the second one. Need a bit more water. Bit more water. Okay, I'm happy with that. That will be a nice dark tone. Okay, a little bit gloopy. Okay, so my next one, it's got less coffee in. I'm going to try and add a bit more water to this so it's a lighter tone. Okay, that's a bit runnier straight away. Let's get a bit more in there. Okay, I'm happy with that. Okay, so I've got my my two different tones. You might just want to make one mixture because there is other ways of doing it, and coffee is about layering. It's not anything similar to what you might have done before, to be honest. Watercolours is probably the closest, where you start off with the lightest colour and build it up in layers. But it is completely different. And again, it's an experiment. You might decide to cover the whole page in coffee like I did with the tea and then work over the top. That's absolutely fine. I'm just giving you some ideas of experiments to do. So I'm going to have a go with my darker tone, see how that looks on some of my lettering that I've drawn out. You need to make sure that you've drawn out your image that you want to do. Look at some previous videos if you need help with shape and proportion. The T1 features some shape and proportions with portraits. Okay, so I'm just applying it on exactly how I would do normally with some watercolour or some acrylic paint. Okay, so this was my darkest one. So as you can see, it's not really dark. Okay, so I'm going to do that. The size brush you want to use, remember, the bigger the brush, the more water it holds in the bristles. Okay, so for smaller work like this, I want to be using a smaller brush really. And also, you know, the bigger the brush, it will water down the coffee. Okay, and try and use the best brush that you've got. Hopefully, if you've bought an art pack, you should have some kind of decent brush in there. And if you collected your folder before we went into lockdown, we tried to make sure that everyone had a paintbrush in there as well. Okay, so now I've done one layer, you can see that this is starting to dry out. It does take a little bit longer, it will be like a little bit tacky. It does take a bit longer than normal sort of watercolour paint. It's something you need to be aware of, okay, because otherwise you can get in a bit of a mess. So do layers and then come back to it. So, okay, working over the top, it will make it a little bit darker, okay, and that's kind of exactly the same principle as the watercolours. You work with the lightest colour first, and then you build up and make them darker. Okay, so building up the layers. I'm going to rinse out my brush. I'm going to do some of the skin tone that would be underneath. I'm going to use my lighter one this time so you can see the difference of how light it would be. Okay, now as it goes under the eyes, I notice on her face it is lighter. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to rinse out my brush, okay, and I'm just going to blend in this bit of coffee that I've already done. Okay, so you can see I got a lighter tone. If I rinse out my brush again, okay, it will go even lighter, fade into nothing. Okay, so it's a really good way to blend. Okay, so I've just shown you how to layer. Remember, it takes longer to dry. Okay, and I've shown you how to blend. Rinse out your paintbrush in between.